Think about it. Think about it. Think about it.
Yeah, welcome back to High School Basketball Weekly. Tim Murray alongside of my broadcast sidekick, Rick Bua. Rick, already it's hard to believe we're approaching the halfway point of the regular season, and the action in high school basketball is really starting to heat up.
Yeah, we had a little storm here come through just a couple of days ago and put a little halt to some of the action, Tim. But yeah, we're already just about halfway there. Some of the teams are getting towards the 8-9 games. There are some in Western Mass, maybe not so much in Berkshire County, that have already played close to 10. And there's some that have a lot to make up. So
Right.
we'll get right to it because there was plenty of action last week to talk about.
Yeah, yes, we will. And we're going to start on the girls' side, Rick, and we'll start with the Blue Devils of Drury, who dropped a close decision in the only game they played over the past week to a very good Lennox team, 40-32. And this is an interesting team, Rick. We saw them in the Western Mass tournament last year against Hoosick Valley. It's an experienced team now. And they're solid. They're going to be heard from in Division 5, and they're a tough defensive team as well.
Yeah, Lennox is a very, very tough defensive team. As a matter of fact, Tim, now that you mention it, they have yet to give up 40 points in a game all year long. That includes the loss to Palmer, their only loss the other night. They're a very good team. Of course, they're led by Coach Nicole Patella, Fred Lefebvre's daughter. Right. She's been down there for many, many years. She's built a very nice program down there. She's got a talented squad with some experience. And that was a tough one for the Blue Devils, though. They led 22-21 at the half, but they were held to 2 points in the fourth quarter, and that was their demise. And Coach Downey, if he was with us tonight, he would say that's our problem. It's been our problem. It was our problem last year a little bit. It's been a problem a little bit this year already, where they would get into a scoring drought, and it was usually in the second half, and it was usually the fourth quarter. Drury's 2-3 now, and they play some pretty good basketball, Tim.
Yes, they have.
You go back to that 1-point overtime loss to Wacona, and then the opening night loss, of course, and then that loss to Lennox. So they were right there in the fourth quarter of the 3 losses, and that's all the coach can ask for. It was their lowest scoring output of the season. Brooke Bishop, good to see her get double figures, Tim, 13 points. She had been held down on their last game. Ninth grader, Delaney Hayden, added 8. But Jacinta Felix either had an off night or they boxed her and tried to contain her. She was held to 1 basket for 2 points. And that's a recipe not in the favor of the Drury Blue Devils, Tim. As you know, she's their leading scorer. And just to lose by 8 points, but not only scoring 2. Jacinta will get back into it at some point.
Sure.
But they'll be next at Agawam. Pope Francis game was postponed also. Yeah, so as I said, the inclement weather did play a little havoc during this last week.
Another team that only had 1 game over the past week, the Hoosick Valley Hurricanes, the Lady Canes, came out on the winning end of a game against Munson. In a pretty competitive ball game, Rick.
Yeah, the Hurricanes won that game in Cheshire, 59-45. Trailed 22-20 at halftime, but then had a really good second half. Outscored Munson 39-23. Taylor Garabedian, again, who had been held down a little bit, which is fine because her teammates had stepped up the last couple of games. Right back to the leading scorer for the Hurricanes. She had a very, very good game. She scored 21. Abby Scalaba and Hannah Shea each had 10. Coach Frederick's girls, Tim, as they did last year under his leadership, find a way to get kids in the scoring column. You never know who's going to be 1, 2, 3. One night it could be someone else. It could be Ashlyn Shore. It could be Emma Meswar. You never know. But they're all contributing, and that's what he needs. That's what he wants. He's got a lot of kids averaging 7, 8, 9 points, and that's going to be a positive for the Hurricanes. And they had their game against Amherst rescheduled to the 31st of January. And they will next face the Taconic Taconic Thunder.
Taconic Thunder, that's right.
Excuse me.
That's right. Yeah, so they stand at 5-1 now, 4-0 in their league. So they're on track again. They're looking for a good seed in the state tournament when it comes around to that time of the year. Mount Greylock, the Mounties, Rick, they've played 10 games already this season. They've been a tough stretch here against some very good teams. They lost to Wacona, they lost to Agawam, but they've played some tough opponents early on in this season.
Yeah, I think they had Pittsfield already.
Right.
Taconit's on their schedule. Wacona's on their schedule, as you mentioned. No shame in playing those bigger schools,
right.
Especially where Coach Jacoby, we've mentioned it several times already on this program this season. He's very, very young and limited experience. And so he's getting some scoring from Maddie Powell. He's getting some scoring from Mia Filio, some kids with a little bit of experience. But then Tanley Drake, the 8th grader, who I'm very impressed with.
Right.
She's going to be a very, very talented athlete over at Mount Greylock. So the Mount Greylock Drury game up at the Bucky Bullet Gym that we covered, Tim, Coach Jacoby had to play shorthanded. So he was hurt for about a week, maybe a little bit long. But then even when he's at full strength, he's still very, very young.
Right.
So they stand at 2-8, 1-4 in the league. And they've got Mighty Mountain coming up, which is a very winnable game. The Spartans are winless right now, and then they play Belchertown, another league foe. So we'll see what happens when we report those games next week.
Right, but they stand at 2-8, 1-4 in their league, and they lost at Wacona. And just as an aside, Rick, we understand that Wacona, they stand at 4-2 overall. They've lost some to Hoosick Valley and to South Hadley, but it looks like they're going to be getting one of their better players back. So
yeah, there was an article, Tim, that I picked up. I'm not a subscriber on Mass Live Online, but I did see the headline, and it did feature Olivia Gambaroni coming back off the injury. So they probably wouldn't have scheduled that article in the media unless she was getting pretty close.
Right.
So I'm sure she's at least practicing now. But keep your eyes open, everybody, for Coach Liz Kay's Warriors, because when Olivia Gambaroni comes around, it's going to change the dynamics of her team that is very talented, but it's going to be much, much better with Gambaroni in the lineup. So we'll see. Just keep your eye open. When you see her name in the box score, you know she's there.
Absolutely. And Rick, the McCann Tech Hornets, of course, in a game we covered, which will be shown, replayed here on Channel 1302 at some point, probably next week after High School Basketball Weekly, in a game you covered with John Franzoni. They lost at home to Granby in a really well-played game, but then they also lost at Pioneer Valley, but they had a big win over their rival in the Franklin West Mount Everett.
Yeah, so they went 2-1, Tim. Like you said, they lost at home to Granby. Granby's not a real bad team. They lost 45-35, only trailed by 5 after 3, but just couldn't get any closer. They were led by Hannah Boisvert with 13 points. Brooke Reynolds scored 8. Aiden Champney added 7. And then lost at Pioneer 55-21. Again, Boisvert led the way with 11. She had a real nice week. And then, as you mentioned, the game that we just covered down there at McCann, we brought them a little bit of luck.
Right, that's right.
And they were able to get their first win of the season against Mount Everett. You see a couple plays here. Nice put back after a miss.
Think about it.
A shot for the foul line that goes. You're going to see Aiden Champney here, number 24, get the ball. She's going to use the glass and score it. Game was close for the first half, and then McCann pulled away in the second half. But the star of the game was Hannah Boisvert, no doubt about it.
Right.
The senior lefty there with a nice turnaround pop. Champney again gets a nice roll for a basket, and you're going to see Boisvert coming in. She's going to take a little short jumper baseline and knock it down. And I really admire this next play. She misses the shot. She misses again. She stays with it and puts it back in. So.
Very talented young lady, Rick. And, one of the things that I think that holds her down a little bit this year is the guard play of McCann, because it's hard for her to get into the offensive action if the ball isn't getting to her in the right spot. But if she gets it in the right spot. She could be tough.
Yeah, and I said a couple of times already, especially when I watched McCann playing the Jamboree, that they needed a ball handler, and I think they have it with a first year Riley Guyton, and she did a real nice job the other night running the point. She's a little one. You can tell that she's new, but she's talented enough, and Coach Krantz has got her in that role, and they pass the ball really well around the perimeter.
Right.
But she plays the post, and they look for Hannah Boisvert in there. And I've been waiting for a long time for Hannah to come into her own because she always had the potential, and she plays basketball year round. She's very talented. She uses both hands. She's primarily left but she can go both hands. And what she's very good at too is a lot of times she'll go coast to coast.
Right.
So she uses the size of that gym down at McCann, and they do a pretty good job. So congratulations to Justin Krantz picking up his first win as girls coach at McCann, and for the Lady Hornets knocking off Mount Airy. And because of her great week.
She's our
Player of the
girls
week, yeah.
player of the week, Hannah Boisvert, and well deserved, as you indicated, Rick, the senior forward for McCann. She really can do it all. She handles the ball well. She has some good moves, good footwork around the basket, and she's really starting to come into her own here in her senior season at McCann. And
Yeah, she and also Aiden Champney, they both had double-doubles.
right,
I think it was 10 points and 11 rebounds for Champney and 11 points and 60 rebounds for Boisvert. And John Franzoni and I, when we did the game, we made that statement without actually having the two stats in front of us,
Right.
because it was so obvious that both those young ladies were having such good games off the boards and in the scoring column. So it was a nice win down at McCann for them.
it certainly was. And again, they've played some tough opponents early on in the season, and we'll see if they can get their season turned around a little bit here as we go forward. On the boys' side, Rick, we had a lot of interesting action. We're going to get into it now. The Mount Greylock Mounties, Rick, started off the season. They are now 4-3. They're 3-0 in their league, and they had a nice win in a very competitive game against Smith Academy.
This is a team that is pretty new, very
Right.
new, very young, and all the seniors, because they were so senior oriented last year under Coach Bob Thistle. We knew it was going to take time for us to get to know these young players. The only player that I even recognized at the Jamboree was Judge Martin,
Right.
the big senior center, and he's playing good ball. He's playing his role, but they're getting scoring, from a couple of different young men, and that's Desmond Cobb, who had a little experience last year, and a newcomer, Noah Kane Smalls, and it's just going to take some time for them, but they're very competitive with the teams in their league, Tim, and they're very competitive with the D5 programs. So they also play a little tougher schedule, like the Mount Greylock girls, and sometimes they're going to get overmatched, and the margin on the scores aren't what they probably want it to be. It's a little wider than they want it to be, but then they come right back against a team that would be in their league or they should compete with, and they do very, very well. And I think that's a tribute to their new coach. And they're doing pretty well there. So they,
Yeah, and it looks like Rick that you're starting to see with this Greylock team two names that continue to pop out: Noah Kane Smalls and Desmond Cobb, two underclassmen. They seem like they're doing a nice job for Greylock now, starting to come on with a little bit of experience.
Yeah, they've been 1-2 pretty much the entire season, I think. And then you throw the big guy in there, and then you're around 30, 35 points, and you're in pretty good shape. So we'll see how it goes. But again, we mentioned on last week's program, Tim, that even though Greylock is 4-3, they're still 3-0 in their league, and since the league's inception 3 years ago, they haven't felt a defeat. They
Right.
went 10-0 the first two seasons. A couple of those wins, of course, forfeit wins over Mohawk Trail last year. But nevertheless, they played 10, 18. That's it's 21 games
Right.
without a loss in that league, and they're very competitive in that league, and I think they're going to battle it out all year long.
McCann Tech lost a tough one to Duggan Academy last week. Duggan jumped out on McCann early and had a good second half to knock off the McCann Tech Hornets, Rick.
Yeah, McCann's 3-2. They're 1-2 in the league, and Duggan Academy, Tim, is the Tri-County North leader right now at 6-0.
Right.
And McCann lost that game at home 75-44. And when you get down to 19-3 after one, that's really tough to come back. They had a good second quarter. They cut it to 13, 36-23 at the half, but Duggan had a really strong game. They played consistent all throughout the game and had a strong second half and pulled away. Eric Rougeau, the junior, he came on really strong last year and is really playing really good ball for Coach Chris Bullitt. Had 15 points. Zach Howland, the sophomore, had 11, and Walt Mazza had 8. So they're getting scoring without the other Holland, scoring in double figures like he did a lot last year. But they have some potential. They've got a good starting five. They can put some points on there. So again, they're going to be okay, and we're kind of looking forward next week. The game of the week is going to be Mount Greylock at McCann. That should be a really good ball game. And Coach John Franzoni and I will be down there, and we will feature the Mount Greylock and McCann boys. And anytime we can get a couple of teams that we cover, and those are 2 of the 4 teams that we cover, Greylock, McCann, and of course the other 2 being Hoosick Valley and Jory. We're going to jump all over that, and we'll be down McCann on Monday, Martin Luther King Day, and it's going to be good. I think the starting time is going to be changed to 6:30 if I'm not mistaken, just because of the holiday. But yes, stick around for that one.
If you have an opportunity and you're not doing anything on Monday, get down to McCann. You'll see a very competitive rivalry atmosphere between those 2 teams, and Northern Berks Community Television will be there. That's our game of the week, so we'll be covering that game. It'll then be shown tape delayed later. In a game I thought was probably the biggest game of the past week in either boys or girls, Rick, was the Drury Blue Devils with a very impressive win over a very good Pioneer team up at Drury High School.
Yeah. Pioneer Valley under Scott Thayer, he's got an incredible program. He's had a very good program down there for many years. And if you go back a few years, Tim, to when Reese Reset, Hayden Bird, Scott McGuire were playing together, and Coach Reset had his kids down in Western Mass, he had to get by Pioneer Valley at some point.
Right.
There was a semifinal where he didn't. There was a semifinal when he did, but they go head to head. And now that they're in the same league and they go back to back, historically, Scott Thayer has had some injuries and some illness when he comes to North Adams. And David Reset and I joke about it a little bit because you always want to play a team at their best,
right? Especially
when it's become a little rivalry.
Exactly.
And Coach Thayer has had a couple of kids either ill or in street clothes or sick or injury for whatever reason. But he brought his full team to North Adams last week at 7-0, and at some point you got to give some credit to the coaching staff,
right?
And the scouting that Coach Reset and Coach Georgie do to prepare his kids. If you have the chance to practice, a lot of times when you're playing back to back, you don't get that opportunity. But if you get that opportunity, you can prepare your kids for certain teams, a certain way that they play the game. And Drury came out on the front end, 45-42. They held Pioneer scoreless, Tim, for the last 6 minutes and went on a 9-0 run after Pioneer had taken the lead for the first time early in the fourth quarter.
And this is a high-powered offensive team in Pioneer that Drury was able to hold scoreless, Rick. Once again, a testament to the outstanding coaching by Coach Reset and his staff at Drury to have Pioneer's number and to hold them to 42 points in a game, that's really impressive.
Yeah, they have been putting huge points on the board. I don't know exactly their points per game average, Tim, but it's up there. And to hold them to 42 points is incredible. But Drury continues to get balanced scoring. And they got it again from Miles Beauchamp. He led the way with 16. Jorge Bond had 11, and Sam Moorman 10. So those three have been averaging in double figures for quite some time now. And if you look at the stats, Dante Dillard, who has not hit double figures in the last 2 games, was their leading scorer, but they're all averaging double figures, just like for the Hoosick Valley Hurricanes we're going to be talking about very shortly. So huge game for them. The game this past week, this past Tuesday, the 9th, against Frontier was postponed, and Drury will head out tomorrow, Friday, January 12th, to Hopkins Academy.
Right, and it doesn't get any easier for the Blue Devils, but this is a big, big win, a win that's going to, I think, have some implications for Drury in the state tournament. If they're fortunate enough to get there, which I think they're going to without too much difficulty, this is going to be a big win for them, and will hold them in good stead when it comes time for seeding and rankings, which the first rankings will be coming out over the next week. And my understanding is at the end of next week, we're going to have the first rankings statewide in these divisions. So we'll get a look at.
That'll be a lot of fun.
Where these teams match up. The Hoosick Valley Hurricanes, in a game that you're going to see right after High School Basketball Weekly tonight, lost their first game of the season to an undefeated Monument Mountain squad. Rick, we were there to cover it. We've got some clips on it. And it was a great atmosphere, great crowd. It didn't go Hoosick Valley's way tonight. And here, right there, you see right off the get-go, Manny Brown scored quickly, and Caden Tatro answered. And then you see Joey McGovern. And actually, this was a fairly close game in the first quarter, but then you see Khalil Carlson, their outstanding forward. It was up and down the whole game.
Yeah, and here's McElroy, the outstanding shooting forward, knocking down a 3. Just Carlson, he's a slasher underneath. He's great. He can move. He feeds the ball off to Ramirez right there, Tim.
Very unselfish squad.
Here's Frank Field, who scored 17 points for the Hurricanes, and he had to work hard for you. There's the 8th grader, Trevor Moynihan, and look at this little move by Frank Field late in the game.
Right, up and down those two teams went.
You know something, too, Tim. We covered this game with John Franzoni, and the final score was 83-49, but it was a lot closer than that. It really was. Was Hoosick going to win that game? No, absolutely not that night. But I thought, they hung in there.
Yeah.
They kept it as close as they could. They only trailed 20-14 at the end of one, and then Monument went on a little run at the end of the second quarter, made it 14. But then they play hard. They only play, for Andy Colas, they only play one way, and that's hard for 4 quarters. They almost don't even want to know the score because they just play it one style. And they're very unselfish, that team. I haven't seen PHS, Tim, or the Taconic Thunder, but I can assure you that those are the 3 strongest teams in Berkshire County. Of course, the Pittsfield team's based on population. I understand that. But Monument Mountain as a D4 team, that's a heck of a program down there.
Right, and I'll tell you, they're going to be, from everything that I could see, Rick, in Division 4, in the state tournament, they're going to be a contender for the state title in Division 4. It's going to take quite an effort by a D4 team to beat this squad.
Carlson, as you know, Tim, as great as the young man is, he can't do it alone. But Manny Brown, Deion's brother, boy, I enjoyed watching him.
Yes,
he was fun to watch.
Yep.
McElroy, and they got a couple bigs too. But you know what? They're unselfish. They share the basketball.
Yep.
They pass really, really well. They play great basketball offensively and defensively. They're the real deal. The Monument Mountain Spartans are the real deal for sure.
Right.
In that game. As I said, Frank Field led the way for the Hurricanes with 17, and that young man played his heart out.
Yes, he did.
The kids all played hard, but Frank was gassed at the end, and we had said that on the air but he never once looked over to the coach, never put his hand up, never started walking off the floor, and just played hard the whole game, and he fell 5 points shy on a personal level of his 1,000th point that game. But no shame in losing to Monument Mountain. I think who's just going to be right there, right under them, all the way in that league this year.
Right. And, you always wonder, a high school coach, how your team's going to respond. Both teams went into that game undefeated, and Hoosick came up on the short end, and you wonder how they're going to respond in their next game. But Hoosick Valley came out against East Hampton and put on a real offensive show.
Yeah, they really did. Now, they only defeated East Hampton 70-65 on December 11th on the road, but easily handed them in Cheshire 88-48. Joey McGovern with a really, really big game, and it was his breakout game of the season so far, coming off an injury. He had 28 points. Frank Field, he scored the first 5 points of the game, and that gave him his 1,000th career point. He finished with 18. Trevor Moynihan had 14, and Aiden Wicks 11. And then 2 points behind that was Cornell Bradley. Right. So, again, those 4 Hurricanes that I mentioned a few minutes ago, four Blue Devils and 4 Hurricanes, almost 5 Hurricanes averaging double figures, I believe. Right. I think they are. And Drury with 4. But that's balanced scoring at its best. They got a couple of big games coming up, Tim. One last thing that we'll report actually next week is their game at Brewster Academy. And then the Pioneer Valley game kicking off the Hoop Hall Classic. And that'll be a good one we'll be reporting on next week also.
Right. And again, you indicated Frank Field now scoring his 1,000th point in that East Hampton game. And for his efforts, Rick, he's our player of the week on the boys' side.
Oh, this was easy. This was an easy one. A lot of times you could give it to 2 or 3 young ladies, 2 or 3 young men. But Frank Field, the incredible senior, 17 points against Monument. And I was there. I saw the game. He worked so hard because he was defended by Carlson. He had to earn every point. He still came up big, even in that loss. And then 18 points against East Hampton. And he's just an incredible player. He plays beyond his size of 6'2" or so, but he can play inside, outside. He can slash. He can do it all.
He presents matchup problems for teams in high school because of his size and his ability to play both inside and outside. It gives him a little bit of an advantage. He can post you up. He can take you outside, and he can shoot the ball from 3. But he can also slash to the bucket, as you indicated, Rick.
He does.
So he's our high school player of the week. And again, you can see that Monument Mountain versus Hoosick Valley game immediately following our broadcast here of High School Basketball Weekly. You want to see two good high school basketball teams and some great individual players playing. You want to watch that game. And as we also indicated, Rick, we have a few minutes here. Can Monument Mountain remain undefeated? Wacona lost to Agawam. They stand at 4-4, but Pat McLaughlin continues to have an outstanding year for the Warriors.
Yeah, the last time I looked, he was averaging 29. In that loss against Agawam, he scored 28. So he's been the one bright spot for Coach Belcher this year. He's just putting points on the board. He's hard to stop because he plays inside and outside also. So he reminds me a lot of Frank Field. Wacona's playing in a different league too. They pulled out of Hoosick's league, and they're playing with PHS, and they're playing with Taconic now, West Springfield.
Right, a little bit.
Maybe Minnechaug, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
But it's a little tougher. But it's going to make them a little tougher too.
Yeah, no question about it. They're solid. Coach Dustin Belcher has his team. Again, they are relatively young as well, and they're starting to come along, and you can see it every game that they're playing. They're coming along. And we want to remind everybody that you can also watch us here, High School Basketball Weekly, channel 1302, every week at this time, Thursday at 7:30, Saturday at 10 a.m., and then Sunday at 7 o'clock. And following our broadcast, High School Basketball Weekly, we have the rebroadcast of our game of the week. And again, this week it's Hoosick Valley and Monument Mountain. Game we just reported on. You want to catch that one. You know the results, but I'll tell you, it's worth watching again. I know I'm going to watch it again because you saw some two of the finer players in Berkshire County, if not Western Mass. And
Two of the
Khalil
finer
Carlson.
players, Tim, and two of the better teams in Berkshire County going at it. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's going to do it here for us on High School Basketball Weekly. For Rick Bull, I'm Tim Morey saying see you next week on High School Basketball Weekly.